The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Baseball season is right around the corner, and the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast and SeatGeek are on a 30-day tour with fans from around the major leagues. Listen in as we talk about where to get a bite or a beverage pre- and post-game, best places to sit at every ballpark, favorite food, favorite players, and favorite moments from all 30 stadiums from around the big leagues. It's the 1420 Fan Experience Ballpark Tour, brought to you by SeatGeek. Let's get into it. The 1420 Major League Baseball Fan Experience Tour brought to you by SeatGeek.com. The SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420POD at SeatGeek.com today and save yourself $20 on your first purchase. Stop number 9 on the MLB Tour is Detroit, Michigan, home of the Detroit Tigers and Comerica Park. Today, our guest is Lou Gamelin of the Captain Lou Extravaganza Podcast, another Belly Up member. Lou, how you doing today, sir?
Brent, I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking me to be on the show. This is awesome. Looking forward to baseball season.
Yeah, it's all right. Spring training games have been going about a week and a half now. I can't take my eyes off these games. The new rules, we'll get into that in a little bit. Obviously, it's been interesting to see how the pitch clock, especially how that's been working out. But we were talking off air a little bit. It's hard to believe that Tiger Stadium, the old place, has obviously been gone for 23 years now. This is 23rd year of Comerica Park. Yeah. Obviously, I'm assuming you've been to Tiger Stadium a few times in the past, but it's nice to see the new place. It's hard to see the old places go, but it's nice to see the new places come up.
Oh, I agree, Brent. And the thing is, I love Tiger Stadium, but like we were talking, it had seen its better days. The days of obstructed view seats are long gone. Thank goodness for that. But Comerica Park is nice. It's really helped revitalize downtown Detroit with that and Ford Field and Little Caesars Arena. It's a great place to watch a ball game now. I've been to Comerica, I'd probably say about 12 times since 2000, and I don't get down there as much as I used to. But it is a nice place to go. And Tiger Stadium, there was a lot of good memories. My first game there, I think Detroit won the first 12 games that I ever saw there. That Comerica Park is nice. I really enjoy going to games there.
Yeah, I never got into the old Tiger Stadium. I was in Windsor, Ontario in 1988, I believe it was. I'm up in Alberta, Canada now, but I was there in 88 and I never got inside. We walked by the whole bit and I never got inside for a game. We were there for a baseball tournament in Windsor, but yeah, I never got inside. Okay. You were talking about the new park, Comerica Park, and how it's kind of revitalized downtown Detroit there, which a lot of ballparks do and cities do a really good job in doing that. Where's a good place to go or to have maybe a pre-game beverage or a bite? What's the go-to spots, one or two places around Comerica Park at walking distance before a game?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to Chelly's is a fun place to go to. There's just so many restaurants down there. Greek Town's by there. It's the nice thing is it's within walking distance. You don't have to drive to places, and there's places to stay if you want to make a weekend of it. That's my favorite thing to do, obviously going to Comerica is the same as going to a Wings game now at Little Caesars. So many different bars, so many different restaurants. It really is a nice atmosphere down there.
Yeah, it's great. Like a lot of times you go to a game, whatever, nothing really happens. You leave and you have a smile. But it's the people you can meet before a game and after a game where you can have a beverage and a bite and you can laugh and joke about how good or bad your team might be doing. And it's always a good time. That's one of the best things about baseball because you get 81 times a year to do it and you can have a nice conversation with people. And it's always a nice thing to get onto and going out to a bite. And sometimes you get to know a lot of the bartenders. You said Chelly's Bar. I'm assuming that's named after Chris Chelios.
Yes,
Red Wings great, right? So yeah, I had a friend of mine. He played with Chelios a long time ago. Yes, with Detroit. So yeah, a lot of good memories and a lot of good stories about Chelios. You go to a game at Comerica Park and you see I haven't been there yet, and that's kind of one of our stops we want to make this summer on our tour is me and the wife. But you see the giant tigers and everything else that are in front of the stadium. There's got to be a lot of stuff around the stadium that are because a long illustrious history of the Tigers. They haven't done a lot of winning over the years, but there's a long illustrious history of the Tigers. What's to see around Comerica Park?
Well, they've got, obviously they've got the statues around there, Al Kaline, Mr. Tiger, even Ernie Harwell, the voice of the Tigers. That's who I grew up idolizing. Then they've got the monuments around the stadium, not quite like Yankee Stadium's monuments, but, they've got the plaques and everything. It really is cool to see that. And just there's little novelty shops around the stadium, around Comerica Park that, you can walk in and see all the latest stuff that, that they've got going, and a lot of the old time stuff too, a lot of collectors stuff. And that's what I like to look at when I go before a game. Just kind of, I'm a history buff when it comes to baseball, baseball and football, or all of them really, but baseball in particular, because that's the first sport that I grew up really paying attention to, listening to all the games on the radio. Ernie Harwell and Paul Carey were my guys back in the day. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula on Lake Superior. So I didn't go to Tiger Stadium until I was in college. It was closer for us to go to County Stadium in Milwaukee to watch the Tigers. Yeah. So, getting to go to my first Tiger game was even at 18 years old. I was like a kid in a candy store. It was amazing.
What's the fan base like in Detroit for the Tigers? Like as I said, they haven't had the greatest history, like the great history, but they haven't done a bunch of winning per se. What's the fan base like? Are they rather rabid there? Are they passionate, or are they baseball fans who are pretty just relaxed? Okay, we're going to watch a game. We don't expect a whole bunch.
Well, they're not like the Lions. The Lions, I think, are probably the most loyal fan base in the world, only because the Lions stink. And I love my Lions. Yeah. We're on the upswing, hopefully, but that's for another show. The Tiger fan base, I just think, Brent, they're immune to, we had a nice run from 2006 to 2015, I think it was, where we went to a couple of World Series. We had a potential starting rotation with 4 Hall of Famers at one time. But Jim Leland couldn't figure out how to, manage that pitching staff and his closers. But again, another conversation for another day.
We'll get into her. Yeah.
It's been 8 years of tough sledding, and getting rid of when Dombrowski left, it just went downhill. And the fans, they're loyal, but I think we're losing patience. And you can tell you can walk up to Comerica Park and get a ticket. And that to me tells you, and a good ticket, lower bowl or, down in the lower deck. And I think they're kind of leery. And with the ticket prices going up a little bit, I think, when you're projected to be a 70-win team, they'll be there for opening day, but by the end of April, they'll be averaging, 10 to 15,000 maybe.
Yeah, it's funny to watch that, Lou, when you watch a baseball game, you watch opening weekend, which is we're less than 25 days away now. And it's funny when you see a game opening day, the place is packed and everybody's got high expectations, spring training. We're going to win 162 games somehow. We got her going on it. And then day 3, the place is empty. And it's not just Detroit. There's a lot of places like that.
Oh, sure.
So, best seats in the house there. Is there a bad seat? Like we were talking about obstructed views at Tiger Stadium, but is there any bad seats in that place? And where's your seat when you go to a game?
You want to know what's crazy is where I fell in love with my favorite seat. And you might think this is a little odd. Is I took my son to his first game at Comerica Park in 2000. I want to say 2009, because Miguel Cabrera hit a bases loaded triple to win the game in the bottom of the 9th after Phil Koch blew the lead the top of the 9th.
Yeah.
And we were in the front row, upper deck, third base side. and I loved it. And it was a great view. I mean, it's not behind the plate. I've sat behind the plate in the upper deck, and those I think are great seats. But that upper deck front row, third base side was pretty cool. I liked it because, you could see everything. And I could sit there and look at the scenery of downtown Detroit in the background.
Yeah.
And I love looking at the high rises, the skyscrapers, if you will. And, so anything in between first and third base to me is cool. But I really, as odd as it sounds, I loved it in the upper deck, right front row. You could get the view of everything.
You mix in an aisle seat in that description, you got me sold, Lou. I'm an aisle seat guy. I don't got no, so I can just turn my hips a little bit. People can get right by me. I love an aisle seat. Then I can just get up and go to wash. And what you described there, like, because everybody says, well, you got to sit here, and then the Legend Suite or wherever it's got to be. No, everybody has their place to sit, and something like that where there's nobody in front of you and you just watch the game. That's an excellent description about like baseball games, and everybody has their spot. Like it's funny how like it's and then sometimes it's more of a memory thing of where you sat for a certain game and everything else, and that becomes your seat. And that's one of the great things about the game of baseball. When you go to a game there, what's the go? Let's say a Detroit food. What's something that you would have at a Tigers game? And don't just say a hot dog. Everybody has a hot dog at a ball game. You probably have one or two anyways. But is there something that you go to a Tiger game, this is a go-to food that first timers got to try out that they normally wouldn't?
Boy. I would say my go-to at Tigers or at Comerica Park is their pizza. It's, it's either it used to be Little Caesars, and I think it still is, but they've got a gourmet pizza, and I forget the name, Brent. I wish I could remember.
Yeah, it doesn't much matter.
But, I'm a plain Jane double cheese and pepperoni or double cheese and ham guy, and they've got one there that'll knock your socks off. That's my go-to whenever I go there. I pay a little more for it, but, man, it's good. I never leave Comerica Park hungry. Never.
That's it's always great food. Like, it seems like a lot of these places now they try to peddle a lot more local stuff and vendors and shops from downtown, and it's not just the usual. I mean, your Little Caesars is obviously a chain, but it seems like baseball parks do a really good job, and teams do a really good job of support locals. One of those things, right? But it seems like baseball parks do a great job of that, and I'm sure that Detroit isn't any different. Get into the team a little bit. The Roar of '84 was a long time ago. Their last World Series champion. I remember that because a good friend of mine, he passed away a few years back, but he was a big Tigers fan, and he talks about the Roar of '84 a lot with Gibson and the like and everything else. Sparky Anderson as a manager. What's your memories of the Roar of '84? And it's been that's a lot of years ago now, Lou. That they last won a World Series.
Oh my God, I know, right? It's almost 40 years ago. Can you believe that?
Oh man, just saying those numbers scares me a little bit, Lou.
Oh, I know. And it's funny because I remember that a couple of years before that, in the strike shortened year, when they had the split seasons. Remember that?
Yeah.
82, I think it was.
82, I think that was, yeah.
81 or 82, yeah. They were close, but starting out 35-5, I can remember.
Unbelievable.
Oh gosh, Dan Petrie had a no-hitter going till the bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. Well, and I remember watching that, and he got I don't know, he gave up a base hit. I can't remember who it was that got it, but of course Jack Morris, I think it was the 4th game of the year, got that no-hitter against the White Sox. I went to 2 games that year. I was a sophomore in the fall at Central Michigan University, so it would have been between my freshman and sophomore years. I went to 1 game in May, right before the end of school, and then I went to a game in September because you knew it was special by then. Detroit was. Oh yeah. I think the Yankees were in second place, and actually the Yankees had a better record the second half of the year. I think the Yankees went something like 52-20, but with Detroit starting 35-5, they were still 20 games out. And that's crazy. What I remember about that. And, obviously Jack Morris and Sparky Andrew, Kirk Gibson, Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker, the double play combination. It was just, and the pitching was great, but it just was one of those years where everything clicked. And, Willie Hernandez, he was unstoppable that year as a closer. they got to the playoffs and they swept Kansas City in 3 straight. And then, the Padres, who everybody was hoping for the Cubs to win it, to play the Tigers in the World Series. And then Detroit actually lost, I think it was game 2 out in San Diego. And people were starting to have a little bit of doubt in the national media. But, Detroit just had way too much talent. And what a time. I remember when they clinched it. I was at my apartment at Central. I didn't get tickets to the game, but Mount Pleasant, you might as well have been in Detroit. Everybody was out in the streets celebrating, partying it up. It was amazing. And unfortunately, like you said, it's been Detroit hasn't won a World Series since. They've been to the World Series a couple of times, losing to St. Louis in 2006. It still just baffles me. We lost to an 84-win team, and then losing to San Francisco in 12. And
I thought that 12 team had a better shot than getting swept away by the Giants that year. Yeah, you brought up Lou Whitaker. Like, why that guy, Sweet Lou, like why he's not in the Hall of Fame is a mystery to me. I have no idea. Like everybody and I'm not besmirching Ryan Sandberg at all, and the Cubs fans, but he's all the player or just as much with the World Series title that Ryan Sandberg was. And why Whitaker never got in the Hall of Fame, I have no idea.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got a couple of theories on it. Number one is he was never a media guy, and he and Chet Lemon would never come out of the dugout for the national anthem, or they would sit down because they were.
That would do it. Yeah.
It was they were Jehovah's Witness, which I'm not knocking them. Don't get me wrong.
No.
That was their choice,
Yeah.
and I think that rubbed the media the wrong way. And now, being from the Midwest, I have a little thing against the quote-unquote East Coast bias. Now, I'm not throwing shade at the Yankees, but if Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell, who played 19 years together as the Keystone Combination, were in New York, Boston, or L.A., they'd both be in the Hall of Fame.
100%.
And I'm not taking anything away from any Yankee that's in the Hall of Fame because they all deserve it. But it's unfortunate. And and Lou Whitaker is funny. For the first 3 years that he was in the majors, I don't think he hit a home run. And then towards the end, he had that golf swing. He was hitting 20 to 25 home runs in that short porch at Tiger Stadium. So I don't know. That's a mystery. But then again, it took Jack Morris how many years to get in? And all he was he was the winningest pitcher in the 1980s in the American League. And, he wasn't a media favorite. He hated the media when he played. And, that's one of those things.
Yeah, Morris, he had a good run here. I shouldn't say here, up in Toronto here for the Jays there too. Like he was a hell of a pitcher.
Oh my God.
And he was a grinder. Like he was a grindy type of guy and just went out there night in, night out and threw. He'd throw 160 pitches, something you'll never see again, obviously. But Morris was he was really, really good. Now, he's almost underrated because some of the places that he played weren't, like you said, New York or Boston or LA, right?
Well, yeah. And I still say that game he pitched against Atlanta when he was pitching for the Twins, that 10-inning game in the World Series, that was that is the best starting pitching performance I've ever seen in a World Series in my lifetime. I've been watching it since 1972. So, that was just a thing of beauty.
Yeah, unbelievable how great he was. You mentioned like the Tigers, it's a thing across baseball, and it's too bad that it happens, and you don't want to talk the negatives, but you can't ignore it. The payroll disparity, they're in the bottom third of the league in payroll. They got Cabrera for $31 million, whatever it is this year, and a payroll of 116, I think it is. So he's basically one fifth of the payroll, or and it's too bad. And the rest of the team, is it time that baseball smartened this whole thing up, Lou, and did something about the have and have nots of baseball, making owners spend a little bit of money, or is it a cap situation, a floor situation? Like what do you think baseball needs to do?
Boy, I tell you, that's a great question. I look at Detroit. You mentioned Miggy, and they got Javi Baez. Between the two of them, I think that's almost 50% of their payroll. And I'm not sure about either one of them going into this year. But to answer your question, I look at the payroll. I think getting that luxury tax is a step in the right direction. But I think like the NHL, I think they should have a payroll, like a floor, make them spend at least, I don't know, 120 million. It's just, Brent, it's mind boggling to me how much money that they're getting from the networks, billions of dollars every year.
Every team gets $100 million minimum.
Unbelievable.
To start the season.
And okay.
Here.
So that's more money than, that's almost what Detroit's payroll is. And that's, Oakland and some of these other teams that don't spend the money that they say they can't. Where does it go? I mean, I don't know. I think there needs to be a floor. Let it be 150 million or whatever. And then you can raise the payroll tax to 250. But hey, I don't begrudge the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Red Sox or whoever. They want to spend the money. Hey, all the power to them. They're not breaking any rules doing it. We always say it's the best team money can buy, but they're playing by the rules. And at least the Yankees are competitive every year. The Dodgers, for the most part, every year. And I'm jealous of that. Detroit was when old man Illich was still alive. And he had Dombrowski, and he said, spend the money. I want a championship. Well, he passed away. Then his son's running it, and his son treats nickels like manhole covers. Step over $1 to pick up a dime.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it shows. And we had Al Avila as a GM, and he just stunk the joint up. Now they're starting over. I mean, literally the whole organization. Our farm system. But yeah, I think there should be a floor. That's my first thing, is make it whatever, 150 million. To your point, each team's getting $100 million in TV money.
Yeah.
To me, that means, you could bump it up with ticket sales and merch and all that. Yeah.
Well, like you were saying, Lou, is that like they're like you said, in Detroit, they're at Comerica, they're raising ticket price this season. Well, for what?
Yeah. Right.
Like I'm not getting a better product. So
No.
why is it more expensive?
I don't know.
Is the capital high? I think there's a problem with COVID. We don't want to talk about that a whole bunch, but they're trying to get all their money back at once, and with doing that, that's my own opinion of that. It's crazy how you go through the major league season. It starts, like I said, in 24 days.
Mm-hmm.
There's 15, 16 teams who aren't winning the World Series. We know that right now. Right. You just know that. And it's too bad that it's like that. And then there's owners that just make a bunch of money, and the payroll disparity. And you have the guy in with the Mets there, Cone, who he's got $14 billion in the bank. And what's it to him? Right. Right. Like, what's it to him to spend this much money? And they taxed him on top. It was, okay, I'll pay that too. Right. So it's nothing to him. It's nuts how that goes. Lou, we were talking a little bit about the new rules that are happening in baseball and spring training. They're enforcing them, and the umpires are doing their jobs. A little bit more work for the umpires to make sure that they're doing things properly and looking for the shift. What's your thoughts on the pitch clock so far?
I like it. I don't mind it. It's funny is we went to a couple of minor league games. I live in just outside of Lansing, Michigan. So we've gone to some Lansing Lugnut games where they had the pitch clock last year.
Okay. Yeah.
And, I didn't mind it. I didn't realize it at first. And I saw it out, in the outfield. And I think it's great. It's funny is you see how the one game ended in a tie because, the guy didn't get in the batter's box in time. And what was it? Didn't that double play get nullified the other day because of that?
Scherzer slowed things up a little bit. Something happened there because he's trying to outsmart the world and everything. Yeah.
Oh, God. Don't get me started on that guy. I love him in Detroit, but he's, whatever.
Smartest man in the room all the time. Yeah.
Just ask him.
That guy too. Yeah.
Just ask him. Yeah. No, I like it. That's the one rule change that I don't mind. You talked about it earlier, the ambiance and sitting and watching the game and talking to other folks. You can do that at a baseball game. I like that part of it too. I like going on a Saturday night about, at 7:00, then you can watch the fireworks at Comerica or whatever. But, when it's like getting to be 3.5 hours for a 9-inning game, and especially, when it's 6-0 or whatever, it's starting to be 4 hours. they had to do something. And I like the pitch clock. I really do.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody. I can't remember if it was on one of these. This is my ninth or 10th one of these things I've done. And I can't remember if it was this here or in a local establishment talking about the rules. And the one thing that I would change about maybe the rules a little bit is in the 8th to the 9th, maybe go back to how it was, because baseball is about moments and the history of the game a little bit. And I don't know if it's just me thinking that some at-bats took a long time, but it just seemed like there were at-bats took a long time. But it was the moments where you're standing up in front of your television, chewing your fingernails off right down to your knuckle. And so if it's a rush situation, I just hope we're not going to miss out on those moments later, like in the World Series, in the playoffs. So maybe like in the 8th, 9th inning of the playoffs, maybe relax those rules a little bit, because you don't want to have a situation where the World Series is won because a guy's panicking a little bit, right? Like it's just one of those things. And that's just, I mean, the players will get used to it and they'll figure it all out after like spring training, which is understandable. But I think it was time that they did something, because games were getting way too long. There's no doubt about that.
100%. No, that's a great point. I never thought of that going into the World Series or in the stretch run, getting into the playoffs, having a game, costing you because of something like that. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's tough. You've been a Tiger fan for a long, long time, as I've been a Yankee fan for a long, long time. Yeah. Who's your guy always been? Maybe talk about some guys in the past and maybe a guy that's been around the last 10 years.
Well, I'll tell you, I watched Al Kaline at the tail end of his career, Mr. Tiger. And, that was my first Little League number, was number 6. And he was one of my favorites. And then I go back to, Jack Morris, because he was a bulldog, man. He was a winner, and he brought it all the time. Lou Whitaker, it's sweet Lou. That's, I loved watching him play. Obviously, I think in the last 10 years, it's got to be Miguel Cabrera. I just loved his stroke, his pitching stroke, his hitting stroke. Yeah. The guy was arguably, for about an 8 or 9 year period, one of the best right-handed hitters, if not the best right-handed hitter in the game. And, his mechanics and everything, it's kind of sad to see him now, just a shell of himself. Here's my thing for Miguel is I hope that he can get a good enough run this year where if Detroit's out of it, that maybe he can get traded to a contender to maybe get one more chance at a ring. And because
having that bat off the bench and saying, okay, well, if you guys eat a little bit of the money and everything else, and because you're going to pay him anyway, so why not? Like you're committed to him for, I think, just this year for sure. And then there's some options and everything else that are going to happen. It would be a good thing to see a guy end his career like that, because the last few years in Detroit haven't been good. Like, and it's tough to see one of the all timers end up on a team like. Not bad, but that's just not very good right now. And to end a Hall of Fame career like that and play nothing games for how long now, it's got to be tough to watch a little bit.
Oh, it is, and it's funny is we got in Detroit, we got Miguel Cabrera in 2008. It was, a steal of a trade. And I can't remember the other guy we got, but we gave up, we gave up Miller. And then somebody else, the name escapes me, must not have been that good, because, we don't miss him too much. We gave up Andrew Miller, who he did okay as a reliever for Cleveland and Boston, but it was it was nice because Cabrera for a while in Detroit, he had some growing up to do. He got in a lot of trouble, with drinking and whatnot. I mean, he was out partying the last weekend of the regular season. I think it was 2009 or 10 or one of them that, but I don't want to say he's reformed, but, he outgrew it and he grew up and, he really, he did a lot for Detroit, and you could see he has the love, the joy of playing the game, and that's what I like about him. He's always laughing, always giggling, joking around. And so, him, and I think one other one, obviously, to me is Justin Verlander. When he came in with Detroit in 2006, oh my God, he was a bulldog, just like Morris. And I'm happy that he was able to get a World Series in Houston. I don't like the circumstances behind it, but
you don't want to talk about that a whole bunch.
No. We'll leave that one alone for you.
I've forgiven, but I haven't forgotten.
Okay,
that's how I play that one.
Well, it's funny is obviously we've got the manager, and to me, he still has to prove something. He hasn't done anything in Detroit, in my opinion. But Verlander to me was one, and those were the ones that I liked. Back in the day, maybe Willie Horton, and Jason Thompson, Rooftop. So
No, they've had some great teams. I remember that 87. So we for forever, all we got up here was Jays games. It's all you can ever watch before cable and everything else. So, but that 87 team in Detroit, where the Jays had to win one of their last 7 or 8 games or whatever it was, and couldn't put one together. And then the Tigers won 3 in a row at Tiger Stadium to finish that season. The Jays were out of the playoffs. And the Jays had a team that could have won a World Series that year. Tony Fernandez got hurt, and they just fell apart back. Like I remember that vividly, and you just watch this train wreck night after night. Like guy was 13, 14 years old, whatever it was. And I was like, what the heck is happening here? And you remember that Tigers team, there was a bit of disdain around Canada for the Tigers for a little bit there, because that's our team, right? It's just the way it is. Except for Windsor, everybody in Windsor likes the Tigers, obviously. One of those deals.
Remember that year, Detroit made the trade at the deadline. They got Doyle Alexander. You remember who they traded for him?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Hall of Famer for the Braves, John Smoltz.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, Alexander was good because he was a J at one time too. Like earlier on, yeah.
The guy went 9-0 in that year. I mean, he carried them into the play. I mean, he and Morris and Petrie, but at the time it was a great trade, and he started out decent in '88. Then Detroit fell apart after about June 15th. But that Jays team you're talking about, oh my gosh. Tough when you win 97 or 98 games and you don't make it, Yeah,
that's tough. And that's back when there was American League East and American League West, and that was it. And then there was the NLCS, ALCS, World Series, done. See you later.
Yep.
There wasn't 16 teams making the playoffs, right? And so how those, like, I think old man, get off my lawn from my porch. But I think baseball was better back then because the playoff races meant so much more. Like now you can go down the last day of the season and more teams can get into a wild card spot. So you do have that intrigue, but winning was harder back then. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, let's face it. You had 14 teams in each league, or I think because when Toronto and Seattle came to the American League, that made it 14, and there were 7 teams in each division. So, and it's just like the NBA and the NHL. I mean, it wasn't as watered down back then. So you had to be good to get in. Look at some of those Detroit teams that didn't get in even before 84. They're winning 92, 93 games. Yeah. Not even getting a sniff. Or, we can even go to the other teams. Look at in the West, in the National League, the Braves and the Reds, or the Dodgers and the Reds, winning 100 games and not getting in.
It's crazy. Like, and it was, I think teams. I mean, everything's always better in the past as we get a little bit older, Lou. We start talking about that kind of stuff, and I was way better back then. And I'm almost 50, but so it's just funny how that I'm becoming that guy now all of a sudden too. It's just a funny the way that rolls out. You've been talking about going to Tiger games for a long time. It's a lot of games you go to, like to live games. It could be a game in the middle of July on a Sunday afternoon that means absolutely nothing. But there's moments that you see at a game sometimes that you go, that was so great, and I'm glad I was here. And it might not mean anything to anybody else. The players might not even remember what happened. You got a favorite moment, Lou, at a Tigers game you went to?
Well, I'll tell you, I got 2 of them, and I got to go back to the first one I ever went to. I was 9 years old, 1974. County Stadium, like I said, we used to go to Milwaukee because it was closer. And there's like 8,000 people. And we walked up, we got 3rd row, and Woody Fryman had a no-hitter going till the 8th inning. And then Aurelio Rodriguez had Aurelio Rodriguez played 3rd base for the Tigers. His brother played for the Brewers, and his brother got a double in the bottom of the 8th with 2 outs. So that was a 1-hitter. But Aurelio Rodriguez got the 2-run homer to win 2-0. So I'll never forget that. I mean, until the day I die.
Yeah.
My other favorite one was probably I went to a live game in 91. Detroit was making a run, and they were fighting the Blue Jays for first place. And we went to the Blue Jays game. It was in September, and Cecil Fielder hit a blast into the left field bleachers in the upper deck in the bottom of the 10th.
Yeah.
To win. And after that, Detroit went into the tank. They lost. They lost the division, but they won that game. And I remember that. And those are my two favorites. I mean, obviously the one with my son, where, like I told you, where Miguel hit the bases loaded triple. But I unfortunately didn't get to go to any playoff games, when Detroit made their run, in the last decade or whatever. But those are my two favorites right there.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, like there's moments you remember, and they may not mean anything even to the players. Yeah. And I was there for this, and I was there for that. And it's a lot of times it doesn't matter where you are; it's who you're with, kind of a situation, right? And it's great. And the game of baseball has that I don't think the other sports have, because the moments, like a hockey, they race around the ice and go here, and you don't know where anybody's going half the time. And like, I'm a hockey guy, obviously, but then football, the games can become kind of, I don't want to say bland, but they become pretty cookie cutter at times. But baseball, there's always a moment that I find that, and that's why I like the game of baseball so much. The moments that they do have, it's an amazing thing to watch. And you go to games, and the kids and old people like it. It's great. Yep. What do you got your Tigers doing this year? What's the vibe around the Motor City for the Tigers? Improve on their 66 win season from last year? Are they going to get a little bit worse this year? What's your predictions, Lou?
Well, it's funny is my dad is here visiting, and we're talking about it. And I said, I went on DraftKings just to look at their over under before we came on, and it's 70 and a half. And I told my dad, I said, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole, because there's zero expectations for Detroit right now. I mean, Casey Mize, who knows when he's going to be back. Tariq Skubal, I don't know. There's not even listed. Neither one of them are listed on their depth chart right now. Detroit's starting five doesn't. Their starting pitching staff doesn't scare anybody, And I mean, we're young. I mean, it reminds me of 2005, 2006, when Detroit went into 2006. Nobody thought they're going to win that division or go to the World Series. They were coming off of 100 lost seasons. And I still think Detroit is 3 to 4 years from contending. They've just been so bitten. Everybody's been bitten by the injury bug. I'm saying Detroit would be fortunate to get 70 wins. So I hate to say it, Brent, but I'm saying 66 and 96 is what they're just. They don't. I don't even know who their closer is. I mean, they got their bullpen, Cisnero maybe. I mean, they picked up Eduardo Rodriguez last year, and he missed the whole year with personal problems. And then, you got, is Torkelson going to be the real deal at first base? I mean, Javi Baez, I couldn't believe they signed him. I mean, God bless him. He had that.
I can't believe anybody makes that kind of money. Good on him. Like on. But I am shocked that he got that kind of money. I am shocked.
Correa wanted to come to Detroit. He loves AJ Hinch. Yeah. He wanted to come here. And I'm like, give the guy. He signed with the Twins for $100 million last year. I mean, what the heck? And it's such a head scratcher. And I mean, he's parlayed it into big money, which I knew he would. But
that whole scenario was crazy back in November. That was nuts the way he was.
Wasn't it?
He was a giant, wasn't a giant. Then he was here. Then he was a Met. That whole thing, that's lost a lot of steam. Like, it was such a great story, and it was a gift for podcasters everywhere. That one just kind of lost steam. You haven't heard a thing about him in the preseason yet. Yeah, because it's the Twins, right? But
how do you not? I was talking. I get a couple of baseball guys on my show every once in a while, and we're talking about them. How do you, with modern medicine the way it is, and you've got access to every medical record the guy has or whatever? How do you not know that before you go on, and say, yeah, we signed him to a $350 million deal? And it's like, wow. I don't get it. Yeah, you're right. That was great for us.
Yeah. Oh, I got a lot of airplay on that one. That was something else. No, it was. Yeah. It's too bad the Tigers are in the rebuild, the constant rebuild. It seems it's. And I'm like, no matter what sport that I watch or what team I follow, I think that I'm more of a you got to regroup, not rebuild, because if you break it down, you might not get it back. Right.
100%.
And it's tough to see teams go into these tank modes, rebuild modes, because you don't. Prospects are just prospects. Like, and that's all they are. They're just some guy you drafted and hope. I mean, and then the way baseball and the way arms are nowadays, and Tommy John and everything else, it's so hard to build a pitching staff, because you draft a kid out of high school, out of college, he's already in how much kids play nowadays in comparison to what it was 20, 30 years ago. When you're drafting a kid, you don't know how long his arm's going to last. Like, you just don't.
100%. And that's why I think a lot of it is jealousy for you Yankee fans, because you're always there and you get it. And, obviously you've got a bigger market, so you can afford it a little bit more. And your local TV contract is huge. But like we said, you can't tell me the money isn't there for Detroit. The guy that owns it they own Little Caesars.
They're doing okay.
They're not hammered. They're not filing Chapter 11 tomorrow.
There's somebody buying a Little Caesars pizza everywhere right now.
Well, they're not $5 anymore either. They're $7.50.
That one went away. I forgot about the old hot and ready's. Those aren't around anymore. Yeah.
With the money.
The hot and ready's. Those are just awful. No, it's just terrible. But yeah,
it's going to be a hard year for us. I mean, they might be able to get 75 wins. Like last year, they started out good for the first month and a half. Then they a couple of injuries, and then boom, they're done. And it just, we got no depth. And, when you're relying on Akibado or whatever,
Badu, I think is the
Badu. Yeah. And he's your ace in the hole. And, we got Austin Meadows back this year. He'll be good in the outfield, but yeah, it's 75 wins, I think, would be the ceiling this year for Detroit. Hope I'm wrong, but
yeah, you never know. Even sometimes blind squirrel finds a nut. Sometimes it always turns out in baseball. You never know. You get a little bit of a hot streak, and you start to see it. And the thing about baseball is, if you start off poor, it's hard to catch up. It is so hard. Like, you can't win the World Series in April, but you can sure lose it.
That's exactly right. That is so true, isn't it? I mean, when you go 1-9 in the first 10, and you find yourself 6 games out or 7 games out by April 20th. It's like,
and that's it. Like, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Anyways, Lou, this was fun. We'll do some extra innings, get you out of here.
All right.
Ready to go? Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Is what, a hot dog?
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
How old is too old to bring your glove to a baseball game?
You're never too old.
That's the right answer. If you catch a ball in the stands, foul ball, home run, whatever it may be, do you give it to a kid?
Yes.
What team do you dislike the most?
Boston Red Sox.
That's the right answer. I like that answer 100%. And last one before we get you out of here. Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, he should. He was my idol growing up. After Al Kaline, I wore his number. I slid into second base head first. Charlie Hustle. Yes, he should be in.
Yeah, it's an odd situation there, and this is that's once it's if you ever want to have a barroom conversation or something, you bring up the name Pete Rose, and it gets people revved up no matter what, and everybody and even people who don't watch baseball, people never even seen him play, which is more and more now, right? Because he's been out of the game for such a long time. People have their opinions on Rose, and it splits it more than right down the middle. It's crazy the Pete Rose situation, because nobody agrees on that for some reason, and it's crazy how that's gone on for so long. I think he should be in. I think it's been long enough, and like, he did admit to it, and he hasn't done himself any favors since the whole, and being the first one to bet at the new place at Great American Ballpark, or the MGM, call it like all this stuff. He never does himself any favors.
No,
I think that's been Pete Rose's biggest problem over the years. He just doesn't, between his ears, he doesn't get it.
They've got his bat, they've got the ball, they got everything else. It's funny is that's one argument that my dad and I got in a heated argument over it, because he doesn't think he should be in there. And I'm like, the guy, he's the hit king.
Put him in as a player and not as a manager.
100%.
It's just okay. He made some mistakes, and I never bet against my team, but you can manipulate lineups and everything else the way people talk about that. So that's why it's always a funny story. Anyways, Lou, thank you very much for doing this. This was a lot of fun. It was quick and easy, like I said, but it was a great conversation. We'll have to meet up midway through the baseball season, see how the Tigers are doing.
Love it.
Tell us about your show and what you got going on at the Captain Lou Extravaganza.
Well, it airs weekly on Wednesday nights at 7:00. Right now, we're doing our emphasis on the American Collegiate Hockey Association. It's technically club hockey for college, but they've got their national championships coming up in the Boston area next week, and I'll be highlighting that this Wednesday. And then next week, I'll be there as well, doing nightly shows every night. At the end, I do play-by-play for them as well. But we're on 7 until about 8:15, 8:30 every Wednesday night on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube. Of course, Belly Up Sports, we're powered up by it. But we talk all the sports, and we're going to get you on, Brent, talk a little baseball as well. I'd love to have you on. Once baseball season gets started in April, we'll catch up with you and get you on, talk a little baseball.
That sounds great, Lou. This was short notice. I got a hold of you yesterday because
I love it.
Short notice to come on and give us a hand through a tour. I got a few more of these to do in the coming days and get them going. But no, it's been a fun tour around baseball and hearing people's different prospects and everything else what they got going on in the baseball world. Cause it's coming quick, and then before you know it, it's World Series time. It's crazy how it all works out. But anyways, Lou, once again, thank you a lot for doing this. And like I said, we'll have to hook up when the season gets going, and we'll talk some more baseball.
Anytime.
Thanks, Lou.
You bet.
Baseball season is right around the corner, and the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast and SeatGeek are on a 30-day tour with fans from around the major leagues. Listen in as we talk about where to get a bite or a beverage pre- and post-game, best places to sit at every ballpark, favorite food, favorite players, and favorite moments from all 30 stadiums from around the big leagues. It's the 1420 Fan Experience Ballpark Tour, brought to you by SeatGeek. Let's get it.